Hello, friends. Welcome back to Heartscapes, where we're learning the system of Reiki to live lives that are rooted, spacious, connected, and that helps us remember ourselves. My name is Michaela. Welcome back to the studio. Really glad to have you here with me. And I'm gonna welcome myself back to the studio because it's been a minute since I've come on here to ye old YouTubes and chatted with y'all between a really intense summer with a lot of moving parts in my life. Maybe I'll share a little bit about that in another video. And my camera breaking somewhere halfway through the summer. It's been really challenging to get in this space with you, so I'm glad to be back here on the Fall Equinox, September 22nd, 2024. And I wanted to just wanted to play with some themes of this time of the Fall Equinox. There was an interesting convergence of auspicious dates, if you will, all coming together in the same weekend that just kind of had me reflecting on some of the themes that we worked with here on the channel and in my work with Reiki, specifically the theme of provision. I often talk about the system of Reiki as being a system of practice that really helps to provision us, to literally bring more resources into our life, beginning with internal resources of feeling grounded, feeling more at home in our body, feeling more stable and secure, even in the midst of crisis or chaos or change or transition. Resources of imagination, of senses of opportunity and possibility, of vision, of expansion of the mind, and resources of the heart, of courage, of compassion and connection. And then the ways in which those resources that are defined by the energy map that we follow in the system of Reiki, the three diamonds, the belly connected to the body and the earth, the mind, or the second diamond at the head connected to the mind and to space and spaciousness, and the heart, the third diamond here in the heart, that energy map gives us a spectrum of provisions that work together inside of ourselves and then that get kind of expanded outside of ourselves into our relationships, into the physical provisions that we bring into our life, all of those things aligning subtly and not so subtly when we're really in deep practice with this map that gives us this sense of focus, of harmony, of connection, of stability in our life. And so that theme of provisioning and having a practice like Reiki to help us to feel more resourced from the inside out is a really important part of having this practice that I love to share with folks. And I started really thinking about how to put that together into a way of sharing with people that map in a concise way, specifically around the topic of facing challenging times. And so this weekend, I offered a one-day retreat called Souls on Deck, built on the writings of Clarissa Pinkola Estes, a beautiful essay that she wrote over 20 years ago now, called We Were Made for These Times. I've made previous videos about that work and about the retreat. I'll put those links down below, along with a link to read the essay. And I knew that I wanted to hold this retreat on the fall equinox, partly because, these times of transition kind of really give us a container that reflect this idea of there being constant change in our life that we need to be provisioned for. It's always a little bit potent to do work on those times of seasonal change. But what was interesting is there was two other things happening in this same weekend that really helped to buoy this theme. And yeah, I just want to kind of, maybe bumble through making some connections here with that. So the theme of the time that we spent yesterday, again, was around using this map of the three diamonds in the system of Reiki to walk through what it feels like in an embodied way, and then how we might think about, and then how we might feel in our heart and our emotions, the idea of being provisioned in the midst of challenging times, so that we can make the contribution that we're meant to make in our lives, in ourselves, in our families, and out into the world. I take the perspective that each of us has contributions to make in those spaces, that each of us has the capacity to make the world within our sphere of influence a better place, and that those spheres of influence, those positive contributions to the world, ripple out, connect to other positive contributions in the web of life that we are all a part of. And of course, we can also choose or by happenstance make contributions that cause harm, that cause degradation of relationship and resourcing and so on. And so knowing that each of us absolutely influences the lives around us, beginning with our own, in an interconnected web that ripples out from each of our influence, and that many of us want that influence to be positive, and many of us struggle to feel that sense of being able to contribute positively because we're overwhelmed, because life throws a lot at us. And the last 5 years or so, the world has thrown a lot at us, which of course is something that humans experience over and over and over again across history. But, in our particular lifespan, we've had some intense times over the past 5 years or so. And we're in a very intense time, at least here in America, where I live, heading into a pretty intense election cycle. And people feel really overwhelmed. I see it in my communities. I feel it inside of myself. And I am absolutely positive, based on direct experience, that we each have access to a sense of being well-resourced for whatever it is that we're navigating, so that, again, we can positively contribute inside of our sphere of influence. We don't have to be influential on a global scale or a national scale in order to make the world a better place. I think this is another thing this is a trap I have fallen into, being connected with activist communities and social justice communities pretty much my whole life. I've definitely at times had a perspective that in order to make any kind of lasting change in the world, we have to do things on a really grand scale, or it's not worth it, right? And you can probably see that that is a recipe for burning ourselves out, flaming out completely. And so I've really had to interrogate that belief inside of myself, and have come to the conclusion that it's really actually focusing well in a way that feels nourishing and resource to us inside of whatever our sphere of influence is. And then there might be times when we're meant to widen that sphere of influence, for example, running for public office or joining an organization that has a wider influence, or going on a national speaking tour, or creating a platform where you can reach more people. But that's not necessary to make positive change in the world. And in fact, we are all doing that all the time. We talk about looking for the helpers, leaning on that lovely quote from Mr. Rogers, that in times of chaos, look for the helpers. And often that those forms of helping are small, tiny little contributions to a stressful experience that make a huge difference. So anyway, that's the thematic scope that we were working with, and using the system of Reiki and the system of soul collage and gentle movement practices to really embody those forms of provisioning that are revealed to us through the 3 diamonds mapping. It was the fall equinox. The season of fall is all about provisions, right? It's all about taking in the harvest, reaping the fruits of our labors over the summer, foraging the fruits of the labors in the world, really bringing those resources together, taking good care of them, processing them well, putting them up in storage for the long winter. This has been the work of fall forever, since there were animals on this planet, and that includes us. And so, whether or not we are directly involved in the act of taking in a harvest and putting it up, metaphorically, that is the energy of this time. And it's an incredible time to take stock of our life, to take stock of the resources that we have, to acknowledge them, especially if we haven't been able to really notice that we are well provisioned in our life, but also to take an honest look at the places where we might not have enough resourcing and we might need to fill in some gaps. And again, when we're talking about doing this through the system of Reiki, we're beginning with those spaces inside of ourselves. Where do we feel resourced or under-resourced inside of ourselves? And then looking at how does that play out in the physical world, in our relationships, in our household, etc. So fall, beautiful time to be working with this theme. It also happened to be International Peace Day yesterday, September 21st, every year, and a day when there's many, of course, activities and events and places of focus and conversation around international peace building. And with that awareness that peace building begins with the individual, to the relationships, to the family, to the community, etc. So at any level, in any sphere of influence, we can be building peace. We can see peace in our life wherever we choose to find it. And we can do work inside of our spheres of influence that contribute to a more peaceful global society. I'm really honored to have a dear friend and mentor, Marilyn King, who's been working with International Peace Day and has dedicated her life and her work to peace building for many decades, really bringing a lot of energy and a lot of really powerful events during this time. I'm going to do another video on a challenge that she has issued to me and to others. That is a really lovely process of imagining, using our imagination to engage with the idea of a world at peace, and helping that imaginal process focus our attention on seeing peace in the world, those many small and sometimes big places where peace is actually active and flourishing, even if it seems like things are dire, that there is not peace. So look out for that one. So it was International Peace Day on the fall equinox. And in this time when, our little sphere of influence here at Heartscapes was focusing on this idea of provisions and the idea of provisions that help us to make our contribution to a better world. Beautiful synchronicity of things happening at the same time. I hadn't planned that, but appreciated the synchronicity. And so that gave us an opportunity to really look at this combination of what does it take to build peace from the inside out, and what are the provisions that we need, and how can we build a practice that is self-sustaining, that is internal to us, that doesn't require any output or any even supplies. It's just with us all the time, that helps us to feel well provisioned to create peace and to observe peace and to proliferate peace in the world. So a beautiful synchronicity there, and one that gave us quite a bit of metaphoric material to discuss in our time together. The third thing that happened to fall on September 21st, and this one just tickles me, and really just fed the heart of this person who has grown up really influenced by stories and by kind of the epic tales of our time. You've often heard me kind of talk about these principles through the metaphors and the lenses of various science fiction and fantasy stories. It's very dear to my heart, and I find it a really valuable way of reflecting themes in the world when we see them come through fictional story, particularly in the genre of fantasy. And one of the most powerful examples of that in our modern era is the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit sagas, the work of J.R.R. Tolkien. And yesterday was Hobbit Day. And by Hobbit Day, I mean the canonical birthday of Bilbo Baggins inside of the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings canon. And so, those who are Lord of the Rings nerds the world over celebrate September 21st as Hobbit Day. And that just tickled me, because what could be a more wholesome and delightful, fictional representation of the energy of provisions, of being well stocked, than a hobbit? If you are not a Hobbit person and have no idea what I'm talking about, first of all, may I invite you and welcome you, encourage you to read The Hobbit, or watch the movies, whatever is your fancy. Listen to an audiobook. They're delightful. But the hobbits, being a creature of comfort, being creatures who are very, very, very adept at creating a beautiful home that is well stocked with any provision you could use for your comfort, particularly food, all the food, the best food, but also, items of luxury in terms of comfort, blankets, pillows, comfortable seating, beauty, right? Filling their spaces with beauty, with items from nature, abundant gardens, their little hobbit holes, under the hills, covered in grass and flowers. Just absolutely well provisioned people are the hobbits. And so this delightful happenstance of it being Hobbit Day on International Peace Day, on the fall equinox, during this time when the small group of us gathered to talk about what it means to be provisioned in order to make peace in the world, make positive change in the world from the inside out. So I don't really have a point or a thesis to this conversation. I just wanted to share that delightful synchronicity with you and reconnect with you after having a bit of a YouTube sabbatical, and just really invite you to reflect on these themes in your own life. Where do you feel well provisioned, and where might you have maybe not been noticing that you're well provisioned, right? Maybe you're feeling distracted and overwhelmed by difficulty. When we're stressed, when we're afraid, when we're feeling under pressure, our biology trains us to look for threats, right? To be very well attuned to danger, to threats, to things that we might need to avoid, right? And that's an incredibly valuable survival skill, but it also means that we tune out the positive. We tune out those moments of peace. We tune out those moments of provision. Marilyn King has an ongoing project that is #LooksLikePeace2Me, encouraging us to notice when we observe something that feels peaceful, that feels gentle, that feels loving and kind, even in the midst of circumstances that might not, to cultivate an awareness, to look for the helpers, to look for beauty, and to train our senses, to train our attention, right? Our practice of Joshin Kokyuho that we use over and over again in this space that comes from the roots of Reiki, a method to focus the mind, training our mind to focus on beauty, on positivity, on peace, on connection, on provisions, is a powerful way of making change in the world, because what we're focusing our attention on is what governs our actions and our behaviors, the decisions we make, the actions that we take. And action is a function of the heart. So when we're provisioning the heart, this territory of courageous, compassionate connection and action, we are going to proliferate peace in the world. It's just what's going to happen as an outcome. So where are those places in your life that you feel provisioned, that maybe you have or have not noticed? Where are places that are genuinely gaps in your sense of feeling provisioned that might need to be tended to? Where are the places that you see peace in the world? I'm going to invite you to just look around as you go throughout your day, observe. If you notice something that strikes you as just a moment of peace, take a picture of it, post it on your socials, #LooksLikePeace2Me, and share that with us. Make sure you put a comment here to let me know you did that so I can go check it out. Let me know what you notice when it comes to provisions in your life, when it comes to moments of peace. Where have you seen the helpers? Where have you been a helper in a time of challenge? These are the things that if we focus our attention on them consistently, change the way we relate to the world, how we behave in the world, the actions we take in the world, and therefore how peaceful the world is. And so it's these tiny things, these little changes, these little shifts in focus and attention that make a huge difference, that add up to peace over time. So I invite you to engage with that. Check out the work of Marilyn King and her peace building efforts. I'll put links to that down below. Check out The Hobbit. Get a little literature in your life. It's good stuff. And keep a lookout in this space for future offerings in the Souls on Deck We Were Made for These Times series. This material that we worked with over this weekend was powerful. It was so beautiful and effective, and I will definitely be offering it in various forms in the coming months. I believe the next offering will be a multi-week class that's done online, so it'll be accessible to anyone with a computer. Okay, friends, that is what I got for you today. Thanks for listening to my rambling. Thanks for coming on back to this channel after I've been absent for a little while. Should be getting a couple more interviews in the Reiki Crossroads series up this week. And I am so grateful to be with you as you go throughout your day, as you look for the helpers, as you look for peace. May you be deeply provisioned for that process. Thanks for being with me. Until next time, I love you. Goodbye.